Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
That's not fair.
Okay, that was only 3 seconds of silence, but that'll have to be enough. Hello, Rhonda. Hello, Heather.
And welcome everyone to episode 293. You already heard that when David welcomed Heather, he was talking about team therapist extraordinaire, level 5 team therapist and psychiatrist, Heather Clague. Hi, Heather.
Hi. Hi, Rhonda. Hi, David. Hi.
Welcome. We're thrilled to have you on the show today. This is going to be a treat for everyone.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
You know, Heather, I didn't list everything that you do because you're doing so much within the team community, but I know one thing that you do is the book club with Brandon Vance. That's the Feeling Great book club. Mm-hmm. And that's such a great thing that you're doing because it's open to therapists and non-therapists alike. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little about it before we dive into the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So Brandon Vance started the Feeling Great book club. I don't know, it's probably I think this is a 3rd or 4th round of it. And it's a way to have a group of people read Feeling Great together. And so we have folks break into small groups to discuss the chapters, but we also do little exercises and demos. And it's just, David, your work is so powerful. And it's just incredible to me that by reading a book and getting a little bit of group support, we just see dramatic transformations and people getting healed. And it's just so gratifying to be able to deliver this on that scale. Because, as you've talked about, just, one-on-one therapy is not affordable for so many people. And, you're going to have your app out, which is great. Can't wait to have that. And this is another way to kind of be able to deliver therapy. It's not therapy, it's not treatment, but to deliver this really powerful method to more people. So super grateful to you.
Yeah, and if people are interested in joining the current or the next Feeling Good Great book club, which I also highly recommend. It's inexpensive, it's fun, and people are actually learning the tools and using them to change their lives. And I'm trying to really push this type of thing, free or inexpensive ways that people can get good quality exposure to these new ideas of Team CBT. Who should they contact? Are you open right now? The current
This group will be open, probably doing the next one in September, sometime in the fall. And if you Google Feeling Great Book Club, it'll take you to the page where you can put your email in to get notified when the next one starts. And no one is turned away for lack of funds. And we have one in the morning and one in the evening to try to cover kind of all the world time zones so that people from all over the world can come.
Nice.
Oh, great. And then as the time approaches, make sure I'm sure you do this anyway, but send me a little reminder so I can send out to my emailing lists notifications that it's coming up again, and here's where you go to sign up.
For sure.
So Heather, one of the things you do professionally is you work at a psychiatric emergency room. You have a private practice and you do other stuff, but I think working at the psychiatric emergency room is what we're going to focus on today. Because we have talked about how you've used the 5 secrets of effective communication in the psych ER. So I was wondering if you could kind of introduce us to the setting and tell us some cool stories. And I know that we're also going to talk about some of the stumpers that you have been exposed to.
The really hard ones. Which emergency room are you working at, Heather? Is this Highland Hospital or some other?
At the moment, I'm at Highland Hospital.
That is so neat.
Yeah, I know. We share that history together because you were at Highland.
You bet. Yeah, I spent, I love Highland Hospital, and I did 2 years there. 2 years plus 1 month. I started a month early in the emergency room, and I spent a lot of time in the psych emergency room.
Yeah, Highland Hospital is a really special place. It's part of Alameda Health System, which is the public health, public system of medical care for Alameda County. And so right now I'm at Highland Hospital, and I also do consultations at Fairmont Hospital, which I think you were also at, David.
Yeah, Yeah, when I was there, it was a hospital for dying patients. I think they also had a tuberculosis ward unit at that time, but I had a ward with 30 patients. It was my first official rotation. I was told that every patient would die. But it was oddly, it was the happiest hospital setting I've ever been in, and people were pretty relaxed and very, very loving, and they were just people with terminal illnesses. And it was a very loving and comforting environment for them.
Well, right now it's a skilled nursing facility, so I support the team in doing psychiatric consultations there, and I would agree it's a really remarkable place. And then for many years, I did work in the psych ER at John George Psychiatric Hospital. So I'm doing less of that now, although at Highland, we still see patients in the medical emergency room there evaluating whether they need to go on to the formal psych emergency room or whether they can be discharged.
Oh, interesting.
In both the psych ER and at Highland ER, I'll see patients who are on what's called a 5150. It's the California psychiatric hold that it can be placed by a police officer or a staff at an approved facility like Highland. And it allows someone to be held against their will for up to 72 hours while they're evaluated to see if they're a danger to themselves, a danger to others, or what's called gravely disabled, which means they're not able to take care of food, clothing, and shelter.
Awesome. That is so neat. So tell us kind of about some of the crises you run into there, and things that have worked for you when you've used the 5 secrets, and things that have stumped you that we will probably all get stumped, but we can get stumped happily together. And I think some of our most popular shows have been when we're doing role playing with role reversals and stuff with the 5 secrets. So tell us what's up, Heather.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so I just first wanted to kind of paint a picture of what this environment is like. And I'm going to kind of talk about the Highland Emergency Room and the John George Psych Emergency Room as though they're the same. There's some differences, but for the sake of this conversation, they're pretty similar, which is that you have someone who's being held against their will. And there's a lot of gallows humor, kind of dark humor that we use to cope with, it's really a very painful, difficult environment where people are in extreme distress. And so one of the jokes is that psych emergency is like dermatology. So in dermatology, there's this law that, if you have a rash that's wet, you want to dry it out. And if you have a rash that's dry, then you want to moisten it. So we say, if it's wet, dry it. And if it's dry, wet it. Well, in psych emergency, it's kind of the same thing. So if someone wants to be there, we usually want to kick them out. And if someone doesn't want to be there, then we want to hold them against their will. And if someone comes in asking for medication, we usually don't want to give them medication. And if they come in and they don't want medication, we often want to force them to take medication. And so if they come in and they're like really wildly agitated, we kind of want to, help them calm down. And if they're too sleepy, we tend to try to wake them up. So it's a place with a lot of potential adversariality or conflict, because people are in such a altered state. They often lack judgment, and they're doing things that are potentially harmful to themselves or other people. So there's just a lot of opportunities for conflict. And so the 5 secrets have just been, a godsend in terms of helping navigate the kind of interactions that we have with people who come in. Because we can't always verbally de-escalate someone. They may just be too intoxicated or too psychotic or too extreme, but we can avoid further escalating them. And as you know, it's just so easy to get defensive and say things that further aggravate or agitate someone. And then sometimes, I'll use the 5 secrets, and it's kind of remarkable. Like people actually just really calm down, then we don't even have to give them medication, or we can help them get out of restraints.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is really, when it works well, it's really amazing. And so, for example, I mean, I've had people who are, just incredibly angry and screaming at me that they want to be released. And if I just sort of use some basic thought and feeling empathy, it's kind of, really just one of the 5 secrets of and plus some disarming. If I acknowledge, I say, you're right. I am holding you here against your will. You're on a psychiatric hold and I'm keeping you from leaving the hospital. And you must feel incredibly angry at me. You're telling me how angry you are. And I've had a few people like suddenly calm down and be like, yes, that's right. And then suddenly we're on the same page. And then, you even had people say, okay, like, so what do I need to do to get out of here? And so just by kind of listening and acknowledging the truth of what's going on and naming their perspective, sometimes that's very helpful in again, de-escalating a situation that could be, much more conflictual.
Mm.
Yeah, that's neat. I love that.
Yeah. And then I had one woman, it's kind of funny. She was, I was very sad actually, because she had a chronic psychotic disorder and had developed a pretty severe medical illness. She actually needed to get dialysis. And so, she wasn't taking care of herself on the streets. And so we had her.
So she was also unhoused, as we say?
She was homeless. That's right. She didn't have a place to stay. And dialysis is when your kidneys have failed. You need to go in and get your blood cleaned. You have to get hooked up to a machine, get your blood cleaned a few times a week. And so when she would use drugs or not take care of herself, she'd get close to the brink of death. And so she was actually, we had her in the medical hospital, and she was just like really agitated and all over the place, very manic. It's kind of a feature of either a bipolar disorder or schizoaffective disorder, where someone's talking a lot and they're very, kind of agitated, and their thoughts are going all over the place. And she had grabbed the room phone and called 911 from the room phone, and she was refusing to take any medications to kind of help her settle or calm down. And I just used thought, empathy, and inquiry with her, just sort of repeatedly, just repeated what she said to me, and then said, "Do I have that right?" So she was saying, saying, you really want to leave here, is that right? She would say, yes. And it's like, you're really upset and angry that we're keeping you against your will, is that right? She'd say, yes. And I said, and you're telling me you have a place to go and you'll be fine to leave the hospital, is that right? And she's like, yes. And we just did that back and forth. And so like, this funny thing happened where she started smiling, and like, we were just sort of like, it was almost like a dance, and we were in a rhythm. And again, she sort of settled down and calmed down. And then she was actually open to me explaining to her why I didn't feel safe having her leave the hospital and why I was worried about her. And she was holding on to the phone, and she actually handed it over to me, and she let the nurse come in and give her some medication. So, we don't always use all the 5 secrets, but using some of them skillfully can have a big impact.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So eventually she let the nurse come in and give her medication?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. And it was just, I think it was almost like a hypnotic thing, because I kept asking her questions that she could say yes to. And we were both sort of standing across from each other, nodding our heads together. and through that, she must have just decided like she could trust me a little bit. I was tuning in enough to her. And so she was able to calm down.
Nice.
Now, before we go too much further with this, what would be the application here to someone who's not a shrink working in an emergency room, not even a doctor, who's just at home interacting with an aggressive teenage son?
Right. Well, I think we're demonstrating you have all 5 secrets, right? So you have lots of, 5 secrets to choose from, and depending on the situation, it might depend which one you want to use. But, the disarming technique is just so powerful, right? When we lead by acknowledging the truth in what someone is saying, especially someone who's coming in expecting you to fight with them, expecting defensiveness and pushback. It's a little bit like martial arts, right? When you kind of receive that energy and flow with it, it can often very quickly de-escalate the situation.
Isn't that what most people just do intuitively all the time anyway, when they have a teenager screaming at them?
Apparently you're on another planet, David.
Good. Well, I just want to make that linkage for our for our listeners, because what you're doing is very impressive, but there's applications for all of us every day within our own families. People
That's a really good point.
And people argue and try to defend themselves, and this art of listening and asking questions and acknowledging someone's feelings and finding truth in what they're saying. Those things sound simple, but they're not easy, and they really have the potential to transform highly problematic situations, highly volatile, hostile interactions. If you're willing to learn and master and use the 5 secrets. Now, we're referring to the 5 secrets, but what are they, Heather? So listeners might not know.
Yes, thank you, David. Well, I'll say them in order, and sometimes we use them in order, but really they're like notes on a scale, as you've said. And once you learn how to play your scales, then you can improvise with them. So there's the disarming technique, where we find truth in what the other person is saying. And the little Mad Lib I have in my head is to sort of imagine that the first thing I'm going to say is, "You're right." I don't always use that word, but it stops me and helps me think from their perspective, kind of, okay, how is what they're saying true and right? Then there's empathy, which can be divided.
Just before we go on, because what you just said right now, I got excited about it myself, is if you can think about a couple words for each of those 5 secrets. There's 6 actually, because one of them, empathy, is 2, thought empathy and feeling empathy. But if you have a couple words in mind, it can kind of get you on track for using that technique.
I'm glad you said that, David, because I think part of the trick with being skillful in the 5 secrets is to overlearn them, is to kind of have them in your bones. Because when someone attacks you, your fight or flight thing goes off, and you lose all that sort of, frontal lobe, ability to think and reason. You'll fall back to what you've practiced. So when you practice them a whole lot, you're much more likely to have them catch you than if you don't. So when you emphasize over and over again about practicing, it's really important.
So you told us what the disarming technique is. What are thought empathy and feeling empathy, and what are some starter kits for those 2?
Right. This is like the Mad Lib of the 5 secrets. So thought empathy is you repeat back what the person is telling you, really as precisely as you can. Like if you can use their words. Again, in the Psych ER, I've talked to people. I don't think anyone has ever really deeply listened to them. And so, I have a little piece of paper there. I'm just writing down what they're saying to me. And when I say back, so what you're telling me is, and I use their words, like I've seen people's bodies just shift and they kind of lean towards me, and there's like their eyes go a little wide, like, yes, like that is exactly what I just said. It's incredibly powerful.
Well, that's great. So that's the one for thought empathy. What you're telling me is, So what you're telling me is that we should have a little starter thing for each of the 5 secrets.
By the way, I got this from Jill Levitt, I think. When I was learning the 5 secrets, she had a little handout like this.
I wonder where she got it. So let's keep trucking along here.
So then we have feeling empathy, which is where we respectfully guess at what we think the person is probably feeling. And so my catchphrase for that is, I could imagine you might be feeling, or what I'm guessing you're feeling is. And I make it tentative because because we don't really know. And that's why this next secret is so important, of inquiry. Which would be, am I getting that right? We make a guess as to what someone's thinking or feeling. Yeah. And then we very quickly say, am I getting that right? So that they can correct us if we're wrong. Because that's
I love
respectful.
that.
And can you also add, am I getting that right? And and after they respond, can you tell me more?
Exactly. So there's 2 kinds of inquiry. There's the kind of yes, no check on what I just said. Am I getting that right? Am I reading you right? And then there's that invitation to tell me more, which is that open-ended question. Can you tell me more? About what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what's going on, what's upsetting you?
It's like opening the door inquiry.
Exactly.
Open the door to welcome in what's going on with them. But isn't that what people always do anyway? We ask the other person more about their thoughts and feelings. We're not the kind of people to say you're wrong and you better listen to me, Buster.
And we're not the kind of people to problem solve and give them the solution to their problem before we hear from them.
Never. No. None of us would ever make those errors.
Okay. Well, this is great. So for inquiry, the starter kit is, am I getting it right? Are you thinking and feeling along those lines? And then can you tell me more about what you're thinking and feeling is when you're showing yourself to want to hear and to want to listen. Is body language and tone important here? Like if you kind of snarl at them and say, am I getting it right? Is that okay?
Absolutely, right? The tone, their demeanor. I mean, you can't fake, you can try to fake the 5 secrets. And sometimes that actually works. But if you actually want an authentic connection with someone, you have to be authentic and you have to be genuine.
Right.
Well, there's 2 more secrets, which are, I would say, that what bring a lot of the warmth and connection. The kind of what we just said was sort of the core of the empathy part of it, and then we have I feel statements where you share what you're feeling, and this is your chance to show up as an authentic human being, right? That we're not just robots. We're humans. We have reactions to things. And one of my rules for myself, so that would start with I feel, but then I have a little warning bell saying that the only word that can come after I feel is a feeling word. So one of the traps with the I feel statements is we might say, I feel that. And then you can start saying things that are not so helpful, like, well, I actually feel that you're wrong, which is you're no longer sharing feelings. You're back to arguing and defending yourself. But if you say, I feel sad, or I feel kind of frustrated, or, I feel concerned and worried. I feel really grateful that you're sharing this with me. This is where we're showing up as a human being, which is so much what people need in that.
I feel sad. I'm feeling a little bit hurt and frustrated too right now. I'm feeling awkward. Those would be a good feeling statements. Mm-hmm. And you should avoid, I feel that you're wrong. I feel that. Now, here's one. I want to see if we can say, I feel like I feel like you're being really defensive. Is that a good one?
That's the same trap, right? Like is not a feeling word. So anything except a feeling word, it will not help you out after you say, I feel.
Now, therapists know how to share their feelings, but the general public has trouble. Is that right?
Right. Actually, David, I heard that therapists are really good at sharing when they're frustrated or angry. Isn't that true?
Yeah, right. I think my point is what this really brilliant teaching that you're giving us right now, Heather, is for everybody, therapists and for the general public. And therapists who think you're good at these things, you're not. But if you practice and work at it, you can get good with these skills. And for me, it's been a life changer. I still screw up sometimes, but it helps me. And it's just so exciting to hear how you're using these things. I'm blown away today, Heather.
Oh, well, that's nice, David. There is one more secret we haven't even, actually, you just demonstrated, which is stroking. Right. And this is where we explicitly convey our respect, our concern, our care, our liking for the other person, our admiration. And it certainly can be conveyed in our whole demeanor, the way that we pay attention and we focus and we make eye contact and we don't allow ourselves to be distracted. But we can explicitly say, I care about you, or, what you're saying is so important. And this is one I would say there's no Mad Lib for it, because the whole point of stroking is it has to be authentic and genuine. We wouldn't want to say something kind of glib or formulaic, because people will just see through that in the moment, and then it feels terrible.
Sure. Right. That's great. What you said is important. I care about you. Yeah. Carry on. I'm just summarizing what you said, and I think this is very hard. But you don't have to say something nice to someone if you're angry with them, do you? I mean,
well, it certainly helps. If your goal is to connect with them, then even though you're in the heat of battle, even though you're angry, if you can bring yourself to touch base with something positive about the other person, about the fact that you care about them and the relationship, that's actually can be really transformative. I think there's very little more loving than if you come at someone with anger, they listen to you, they hear what's important, the important message behind the anger, and they're able to convey that they care about you. That's like really, really powerful, and I think can be an incredibly transformative moment in any relationship.
Can you give us an example?
Oh, exactly.
Go ahead,
David.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Isn't that hard to do?
Go ahead. I will shut up.
No. Well, isn't that hard to do when someone's yelling at you and not really based in reality, and they're not calm and they're angry, and maybe some of the stroking could be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Could you give us an example of stroking when you're in the psych ER?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, first of all, yes, it is really hard, and we all make mistakes. And I think doing this work requires that sort of very powerful combination of diligence and practice and willingness to fail and try again, and a lot of self-compassion and support and encouragement for yourself, because you're trying to do something that's really challenging. And in the psych ER, I would say at this point in my career, it's gotten easier because I've practiced enough that I don't really take anything too personally. In fact, you'll see some of the harder examples are, when people really throw something rough at you. I mean, if you take it personally, then you're going to get derailed. But if you realize this is really about the other person, and my role is to be a caring, physician, it makes it easier to kind of let that piece slide past you. But I still get hooked sometimes.
But what might be some hostile things you hear in the emergency room, and just so we could illustrate how one might use I feel statements and stroking, because I sometimes like to combine those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, should we go to our stumpers? Should we
go to our what?
The stumpers, the really hard.
No, not quite yet.
Not yet. Okay. Just you want more garden variety? Well, the garden variety one would be like, you don't care about me. You just got me locked up here, and you don't even care.
Yeah, and so show us how you'd respond to that one.
Yeah. Well, I would disarm and say, you're absolutely right. I'm holding you here against your will. And I would not want to be held against my will. And you're here in this emergency room with all this noise, and I'm sure you have better places to go. And instead, I'm insisting that you stay here. And I'm doing that because I am so worried about you right now. I've seen what the report says. It says that you were running around on the street naked, and you were running into traffic. And I'm actually really scared that if I let you go, that you might get hurt.
Yeah.
Might add on some more feeling empathy there. And I can imagine you're feeling really angry that I'm holding you here. Is that right? Can you tell me more how you're feeling? Yeah,
that's right. That's great. I love that, Heather. Yeah.
I didn't disarm the you don't care about me piece of it. I guess that wasn't quite what flowed, but
well, how would you disarm that? I thought it was pretty close, because you're right. I'm holding you here against your will. I'm insisting you stay here where you don't want to stay. But that's kind of just disarming. But give us another choice example of disarm. You don't care about me.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on the context, but I think the idea would be to disarm that I am doing something right now that's not caring.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe I was disarming by saying, you're right, I'm holding you against your will. That's not an especially caring thing to do, is it? Right. To lock someone up when they want to leave and deny them their freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can even say, you're right. I feel exactly the way you do. I'm kind of here in the role of a probation officer or a prison guard. And I'm not sharing any warmth or compassion with you at all. And you have every right to be super pissed off at me. And in your shoes, I'd be feeling exactly the same way you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
This makes me uncomfortable too. And I'd love to let you go, but at the same time, I know that you were telling the nurses earlier that you want to get out of here so you could commit suicide. And I'm afraid that if I let you out, and your life is precious, and if I let you out of here and you killed yourself, I'm not sure that I could ever forgive myself. But at the same time, I'm siding with you because I think everything you're saying is absolutely correct. Tell me more about maybe things I've done or said or other staff have done or said that's pissed you off. I know there's been a lot. How's that?
Beautiful, David. Yeah. Come to a shift.
So that's the easy stuff. Now to get on to the good stuff, the hard stuff.
All right. Well, can I tell you one other story? We have time for one more story.
Sure.
Just this one I'm particularly proud of because I thought of you, David, because you and I have worked together to help me be able to use the word anger.
Couldn't get it out.
Anger. There, I said it. Anger. So, this was actually the nursing facility. There was a guy who was quadriplegic, and he had a power wheelchair to wheel around, and he was not a particularly nice person, and he had rammed several people with his wheelchair. And so the staff, the nursing, took it away from him, at appropriate limit. And then they asked me to see him, and he was just venting and ranting about how cruel they were taking away his wheelchair. And I listened for a while, and I was, kind of trying to disarm and use thought and feeling empathy. It wasn't really getting through to him until finally I said, I'm wondering if you're really angry at me, because I haven't been advocating to the administration to get your wheelchair back. And it was quite remarkable. He just suddenly turned at me, again, that sort of wide-eyed expression, and he was like, yes, I have been angry at you. And his anger kind of melted, and he just started expressing gratitude that I had named, and sort of said it was okay for him to be angry at me. And I can't exactly remember what we said. We processed that a little more. And then I said to him, if you wanted to try to earn your wheelchair back, I could coach you about how to do that. But you'd have to take 100% responsibility for making the change, for doing this. And you're probably not interested in that. And he was like, no, I am.
Cool. Little paradox. What was that? Somebody painting the fence? Tom Sawyer.
Exactly. Right. I stayed paradoxical for quite a bit until he was sort of begging. And I basically said, you have to convince them that you're going to be safe and you're not going to hurt anybody with your wheelchair. And they're probably going to have all sorts of demands of you, and you're going to have to basically kiss their butts. And why would you want to do that? It's so unfair that they took it away from you, isn't it? And with enough of that, he kind of got the message. I think he was a little antisocial maybe. And he realized, I could actually figure this out. And he ended up doing it. He ended up convincing them that he was going to be okay. And he kind of became more polite and gracious, and he got his wheelchair back. And then every time he saw me, he was super excited.
Oh, that's neat. Congrats on doing that.
That's awesome.
Make you feel so good.
Yeah.
And people talk about how difficult it is to teach others how to use the 5 secrets, but it seemed like he picked it up, enough of it to make it work for him.
He did. I mean, to be fair, I did pull a few strings for him. I think the administration was a little fed up with him, and I did ask them to give him another chance. So I did a little bit to bring them together, and actually that required some paradoxing as well. But it was in a really nasty negative feedback cycle where he was nasty, and then there was a punitive, they did have to take the wheelchair away from him. I didn't question that, but it did feel like it turned something from a negative feedback cycle into a positive one, which
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, all right. So you want to hear should we practice the stumpers?
Yes, we should. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
When you're working at Highland Hospital, you're working often with people who are very poor financially, homeless, few resources. You're talking about people who are sometimes the most severely ill physically, because when I was working in Highland, we had things that were just unbelievably horrible. And psychiatrically, you're really dealing with some of the most severe of the most severe come in there. And yet when I was there, it was just so nourishing for me to be in that Highland Hospital environment. And it sounds, I know you're not making the big bucks. They're working at, Highland Hospital in the emergency room and consulting. But I'm wondering if you also find it nourishing.
David, I really appreciate you saying that. I do. I think it's hard to see the inequalities in our society, how much our society tolerates inequality, the impact of systemic racism. This is a hospital of last resort, and the people that work there are amazing.
Yes, they're amazing.
Incredibly committed group of people. Highland is so committed to addressing health disparities. They're actually a really exciting project where they're going to measure in granular detail ethnic identity, so that when they look at the measures of hospital quality, it's going to be measured by ethnic category, so if there's an ethnic group that is an outlier, those disparities can be addressed.
Yeah. When we moved back to California after 20 years or so in Philadelphia, because I had gone from Highland Hospital to UPenn in Philadelphia to complete my residency. Then we moved back, and I was driving from, where we live now in Los Altos Hills to Berkeley to visit Jackie Persons, who's one of my students in Philadelphia. And she was having kind of a reception there. And when she gave me the instructions to her home, I drove right near Highland Hospital. And I said, oh my gosh, that's Highland Hospital. That's where I was for 2 years. I started crying because I was so grateful for the years I had at Highland Hospital. My respect for that place is just over the top. The skill that they had, at least to my eyes, they were amazing. The people working there in the ER and the psych units and throughout the hospital, I just thought they were so talented and kindly. It just blew my mind. Anyway, it's neither here nor there, I guess.
I think you appreciate that, David. I think you're right.
I think as listening to the two of you, a lot of people think that when someone's in the psych ER, they're really scary, or they're
a lot of them are
people to be avoided, a place to be avoided.
Yeah,
and a lot of people might be scary, but you're talking about this population of patients so warmly, and with such grace.
Yeah, that's right. And people can tell. It doesn't always work. I mean, they had people coming into the ER when I was there in leather restraints, who, if you got close to them, they would bite you if they could. They're growling really with rage. So let's get on to our stumpers here, because we just have a little while left.
Yeah, well, this actually one is exactly that scenario. So this one actually didn't happen to me, but I was trying to imagine how I would have responded to it. So the patient came into the psychiatric emergency room, kind of it was called the triage area. It's where they're first greeted by the doctor and the nurse. And this person was strapped to a gurney. It's the kind of the little bed, the hospital, the ambulance bed thing that they wheel them in on.
Yeah.
And he took one look at the doctor and he said, "Boy, are you ugly."
Yeah.
And she handled it with grace. I don't remember what she said. She was sort of like, yeah, whatever. But I was trying to imagine how I would keep my composure if someone said that to me.
So we want to do some 5 secrets response to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us what you came up with that you thought maybe wasn't so effective, or what some of your stabs at that.
Okay. Here's my stab. And this is
here's my stab at not being effective.
Oh, okay. Great.
Okay. Rhonda.
Well, not as ugly as you are.
That sounds great. That calmed him right down. He began laughing, and we took the restraints off, and he just left the hospital. He was fine then.
Right. And that is probably what comes to most, right? The urge to defend yourself and strike back. So my response here is credit to Danny Prine, because he coached me on some of these. Okay, here's my response. The chart doesn't say you have a vision problem, but we'll be sure to get your eyes checked. Meanwhile, I'm guessing I'm the last person you want to have to talk to, and I'm sensing you're angry as hell about being here. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's an attempt to use humor. Humor is a great thing. I always say the one time never to use it is when someone's angry, because then it can escalate the problem. That one might work for sure, but the problem is they might think that you're making fun of them, and that now you're engaging in battle, and the thing could explode, or it could just have a really nice lighthearted touch and calm the person right down. There's someone coming in strapped in a gurney. Go ahead, say it to me, and I'll respond. I'll pretend like I'm a female doctor here, just to keep the gender things straight, because that could influence the response. You go ahead.
Okay, I'm the patient.
Yeah, and mine might not be any good either. But go ahead.
Okay. Boy, are you ugly.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty ugly right now, because you're coming in here all uncomfortable and strapped to a gurney, and I'm keeping you here against your will, and I have no doubt that you're really angry and enraged and pissed off for good reason. And I'm going to do everything I can to be helpful to you. But tell me more what's going on with you, and how you're feeling right now. How's that?
I like it. The one. This is an interesting thing. Is that you're being very warm and gentle.
Yeah.
And sometimes if someone's coming in feisty and wanting to fight, I kind of want to see that you're tough.
Yeah.
That actually helps me feel safer to know that I can't actually hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So I do want you to
maybe add something like, and I can tell you I've heard everything here in the ER, and but I'm really here to help you if that's what you want. And it looks like you might need some help there, because you're all strapped down. You're looking pretty awfully uncomfortable. And we probably got a lot of staff here that are looking pretty ugly to you, and for good reason. Tell me what's going on. Tell me how you're feeling. I've heard it all, and you're not. I'm safe. Tell me where you're at. How's that?
I like that. I like that a lot. I like the sort of I've heard it all. So tell me. Go ahead and tell me.
Yeah. Well, what's good about it?
Well, you're calm, and you're. Again, you're not retaliatory at all. You're making space for my experience, and I think there's something about how, like, you're just sort of unfazed. Like you're not rising to the bait, and you're staying focused on actually what I need.
Yeah. Let's try a role reversal. Are you ready?
Sure.
You want to be the patient, Rhonda?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Whew. Boy, are you ugly.
Yeah, I probably have my makeup on crosswise. But I don't feel so beautiful right now, because I'm sitting here with you, and you're having to be strapped to a gurney. And I can imagine this is not where you want to be. And my goal here is to really figure out how to help you, how to get you out of these restraints, so that we can get you what you need and get you out of here. So can you tell me how are you feeling? What's happening? Tell me more.
Great. Now, what grade do you give yourself on that?
Oh, a B.
Now, earlier on, we said something a lot of listeners didn't understand about a word that we were gagging on. and the thing is, there's one word that no therapist in the United States has ever used and ever will be able to use.
Okay.
Due to the tense conflict phobia. What's that word?
Anger.
Yeah. And so I can't give higher than a C when anger's on. It was really beautiful response. Let's do a little.
Can we try it again? Can I try it again?
Yeah, we'll do some deliberate practice here. So do you want to be in your own role again?
Yeah. Let me take another swing.
Yeah. Boy, Are you ugly? Are you going to be my doctor?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty ugly right now. I'm imagining you must be really pissed at me because here you are strapped to a gurney, and I'm sure you don't want to be here. Is that right? Can you tell me more about what's going on for you, how you're feeling?
How'd you grade yourself on that?
It seemed a little better. I mean, I named his anger. I got to I acknowledged the truth of the situation, of, his little thought, empathy, and some inquiry.
Yeah. Would you give it, what do you think, Rhonda?
Well, we were talking before about stroking and how hard it is to stroke people in that situation, which I totally can imagine and see. I would give you an A- because there was no stroking. Although at the same time, I can't imagine how you could stroke him.
Well, let's see if we can do that. But that's some pretty great feedback from both of you. Yes, it was massively improved, and I'm sure an A- would be way more than enough. A B would be way more than enough, to be honest, especially when you give them a chance to vent. But how would we stroke them?
It's funny because I think I would. You don't have to use all 5 secrets at once. I think if he vented, then I might be able to stroke him.
Sure, but let's answer the question. How are we going to stroke him at whatever point we're going to do it?
Well, I respect you. I respect that you don't want to be here. I care about you, and I want to make sure you get the help you need.
That's not bad. It's a bit formal. You want me to give you an idea about it?
Yeah.
This may not be any good either, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of really cool things about you, and but one thing that I admire, man, are you open and honest with your feelings? And the world is filled with people who are always acting fake, and you put it right out there. So that's really cool. I can tell you, I'm not feeling really very pretty right now either, because here you're in a gurney and I'm kind of like the prison warden keeping you here against your will, and I'm feeling a little on the ugly side and having to do that too. But tell me what's going on with you. It sounds like you're really, really pissed off, and I want to hear what you have to say and see what I can do to help point you in a good direction here. How's that?
Nice. Yeah. I mean, my only feedback would be it might be a little long for that.
Yeah.
I think that's, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, should we try another one?
Sure. Let's see. I've got 2 more. How much time? Do we have time for both, or do you want to just do one?
Just one.
Okay. This is the hardest one.
Okay.
So I walked into this patient's room and I, introduced myself. Hello, I'm Dr. Clague. I'm wondering if I could speak to you for a few minutes. And he said, sure, baby, if you get into bed with me.
Sure. I found that one really easy. But I don't know. Again, this is new territory for all of us. But how would we use the 5 secrets? What did you come up with on that one, Heather?
Okay, so I don't remember what I said in the moment. I think I just blithered and got awkward, and I don't know what I did. But here was my first draft, which is like, well, I'm feeling awkward. I wonder if you're having fun getting a rise out of me, and if you're feeling irritated or insulted by having a psychiatrist come to see you. Is that right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Heather. To me, that's coming pretty close to an A, wouldn't you say, Rhonda?
Totally.
Yeah. Why is it? Why are we so impressed with that?
Well, you started off with your like being vulnerable, but you didn't stay in that place when you said, well, I'm feeling awkward.
Yeah.
And then you immediately went into, feeling empathy, where you imagined what he was feeling, and then allowed him an avenue to express himself with your inquiry.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of different ways to respond, but I can't think of anything better or even that good. Why do we think it's so good, Heather?
I don't know. I mean, I think, there's, I think I was being authentic.
Right.
To try to pretend that I wasn't awkward probably was going to make me feel more awkward.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What if you said this? This is this is my anti-5 secrets, probably, because this is what I wrote. I just wrote the disarm. You're right. It could be helpful for you if I climbed into bed and cuddled with you, but it would really be a violation of the doctor-patient relationship, and it would be so awkward and uncomfortable for me that I don't think that's going to happen right now. But I wonder what you're feeling.
I don't think that's going to happen right now, but maybe.
I don't think we're going to use that response right now, Rhonda.
I said it was the anti-5 secrets.
Yeah. Actually, can I just chime in about something here? Because, David, you've been brilliant at this is like some of the hardest stuff to respond to when sexual stuff comes up between a patient.
Yeah, that's the hardest category.
And I think part of it is there's a huge diversity of what's happening in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it can be like in this case, the guy's just trying to mess with me, right? He's trying to harass me and just see what he can get away with. Right. Yeah. Whereas sometimes people express this, it's because they've gotten really vulnerable. They might not really understand the boundaries of a therapy relationship. Like you might have a very different response depending on what you think is driving the behavior.
Sure. That's a good point too. Yeah. Your understanding of the other person is very important. And these just aren't things you can spit out of your mouth.
And I just want to say, Rhonda, like sometimes it's incredibly important to actually reassure the patient that, that is never going to happen. This is a doctor-patient relationship, and you and I will never have any kind of sexual relationship. I wouldn't say it here because this guy knows that. But in some situations, I would say your feelings are welcome here. We can talk about how you're feeling. It makes complete sense that these feelings might come up. But, professional therapy never includes any kind of romantic relationship, and this will never happen, as a way to draw the boundary and help them feel safe.
That's a good one too. I was prepared to do all kinds of coming up with better responses to stuff that you brought up, Heather, but I just think you're hitting it out of the park these days.
Wow. I want to hear your response to that one though. You said you thought it was easy. It took me a long time to come up with that response.
After hearing yours, mine just seems wimpy by comparison, but if it's just, sure, baby, if you want to get into bed with me, and sometimes you have to use power a little, what you call setting limits, and say something. I'm not here for anything like that. I'm here in the context of being your physician, and to be helpful to you with your medications and some other issues. You might be feeling really angry and saying you don't want to have a doctor-patient relationship. And so if you want, I can leave right now and tell the administration that maybe they need to assign some other doctor to you, maybe a male doctor. Is that what you're looking for? If you would like some medical help, I'd be very pleased and honored to continue to work with you. And if you're really angry at people coming into your room and want to vent about that, tell me about that. I'd be eager to hear that too. So ball's kind of in your court right now, Roger.
I like that a lot.
Okay, why?
It's very clear and respectful. Yeah. It's also paradoxical, right? You're basically you offered him an invitation, right? If he wants help, you're here to have it, but there's kind of a gentle ultimatum as well, is that if he's not going to be appropriate, you could refer him to someone else. And I'm going to listen to this and write that down because I really like that.
Good. Well, thank you. I'm glad I could come up with something too, but it's I'm really blown away by the skills that you're demonstrating here. I wish we had more time, and maybe we'll have you back for part 2 and do some more of these killer things. And maybe one thing that Jill Levitt suggested is that maybe we could have our listeners write in emails of the most horrible things that they could say to David, to Heather, to Rhonda, or whoever you would like. And then we can keep a list of those things, and then we could role play them in a future five secrets demonstration to bring it to life even more with some real stuff. Like people say, "Oh, David, you think you know all the answers," or whatever they want to say, or, David, you're really kind of a worthless human being, aren't you? And then I'd have to agree with that. Of course, that's easy for me to agree with, but we could just play a game, see if you can stump the expert, see if you can come up with some criticisms of Rhonda, Heather, David, that you think we couldn't possibly agree with. And then our job would be to disarm them and respond with the 5 secrets. Because our time is short, I know you have to get on a plane shortly here and get your COVID test and everything, Rhonda. So we've got to quit. But I told our listeners that you would say something wonderful at the end to round out this podcast.
Well, I do have something. Heather's one of my closest friends, and we met at one of your intensives. I think it was in 2014. And I can see us both, I was being kind of funny, and Heather is being her normal, brilliant self, as well as you are, David. But these 5 secrets, they're hard to learn, and they don't come easily. We've been doing them for, years, and practicing and teaching is a way of practicing and learning. And, we just want to invite our listeners to practice themselves and fail at it and learn from the mistake and then keep going. And the more you practice, the better you will get at them.
Yeah, and the practice, to be specific, is something like what we're doing, role playing. Here's what the other person said. Here's what your son said to you. Here's what you said next, and then keep practicing until you get an A. And that's called also deliberate practice. Give specific feedback. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. Now try it again. Keep doing role reversals until you both get up to an A. And I think you've been doing a ton of that, Heather, and it really shows. You're like I was one of your first piano teachers, and now we're coming in for a recital years later, and you're one of the top pianists in the world.
Mm. Well, David, I have a tremendous gratitude to you. So grateful you've come into my life, and that I've gotten to learn the 5 secrets and all of team. It's just such a gift.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Fun to see you. Have a great trip, Rhonda.
Thank you.
When you come back, we'll miss you, and be safe and be happy, and blessings to everybody.
Thank you. And thanks, Heather.
And I also want to say, Rhonda is one of my dearest friends. And I wouldn't be here if Rhonda hadn't grabbed my ear kind of at every step of the way and gotten me to do one thing or another in team, including coming on all those hikes, David. So
yeah, right. Yeah, well, good to see you again, and have a good one. And until next time, goodbye, everybody. Bye, listeners. Thank you for all your support.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.